Hi, I'm Coach Famaligi, athletic coordinator here at Montwood. Today we're reading Chapter 7 of The Great Gatsby by F. Scott Fitzgerald, one of my favorite books of all time. And I'll pick up during a heated moment in the book. Open the whiskey, Tom, she ordered, and I'll make you a mint julep. Then you won't seem so stupid to yourself. Look at the mint. Wait a minute, snapped Tom. I want to ask Mr. Gatsby one more question. Go on, Gatsby said politely. What kind of row are you trying to cause in my house anyhow? They were out in the open, and at last, Gatsby was content. He isn't causing a row. Daisy looked desperately from one to the other. You're causing a row. Please, have a little self-control. Self-control, repeated Tom incredulously. I suppose the latest thing is to sit back and let Mr. Nobody from Nowhere make love to your wife. Well, if that's the idea, you can count me out. Nowadays, people begin by sneering at family life and family institutions, and next they'll throw everything overboard and have intermarriages between black and white. Flushed with his impassioned gibberish, he saw himself standing alone on the last barrier of civilization. We're all white here, murmured Jordan. I know I'm not very popular. I don't give big parties. I suppose you've got to make your house into a pigsty in order to have any friends in the modern world. Angry as I was, as we all were, I was tempted to laugh whenever he opened his mouth. The transition from libertine to prig was so complete. I've got something to tell you, old sport, began Gatsby, but Daisy guessed at his intention. Please don't, she interrupted helplessly. Please, let's all go home. Why don't we all go home? That's a good idea. I got up. Come on, Tom, nobody wants a drink. I want to know what Mr. Gatsby has to tell me. Your wife doesn't love you, said Gatsby. She's never loved you.
Hi, I'm Miss Marcus. I'm one of the Montwood High School librarians, and today I'm going to be reading a little bit from The Hunger Games by Suzanne Collins. It's an oldie but a goodie. It's one of my favorite dystopian novels. So let's get started. The rules of the Hunger Games are simple. It's in punishment for the uprising, each of the 12 districts must provide one girl and one boy, called tributes, to participate. The 24 tributes will be imprisoned in a vast outdoor arena that could hold anything from a burning desert to a frozen wasteland. Over a period of several weeks, the competitors must fight to the death. The last tribute standing wins. Taking the kids from our districts, forcing them to kill one another while we watch, this is the Capitol's way of reminding us how totally we are at their mercy. How little chance we would stand of surviving another rebellion. Whatever words they use, the real message is clear. Look how we take your children and sacrifice them, and there's nothing you can do. If you lift a finger, we will destroy every last one of you, just as we did in District 13. To make it humiliating as well as torturous, the Capitol requires us to treat the Hunger Games as a festivity, a sporting event pitting every district against each other. The last tribute alive receives a life of ease back home, and their district will be showered with prizes, largely consisting of food. All year, the Capitol will show the winning district's gifts of grain and oil and even delicacies like sugar, while the rest of us battle starvation. It is both a time for repentance and time for thanks, intones the mayor. Then he reads a list of past District 12 victors. In 24 years, we have had exactly 2. Only one is still alive. Hamish Abernathy, a paunchy, middle-aged man who is, at this moment, appears to be hollering something unintelligible, staggers onto the stage and falls into the third chair. He's drunk. Very. The crowd responds with its token applause, but he's confused and tries to give Effie Trinket a big hug, which she barely manages to fend off. The mayor looks distressed since all of this is being televised right now. District 12 is a laughingstock of Pan Am, and he knows it. He quickly tries to pull the attention back to the reaping by introducing Effie Trinket. Bright and bubbly as ever, Effie Trinket trots to the podium and gives her signature, "Happy Hunger Games, and may the odds be ever in your favor." If you want to read more about the Hunger Games, just ask your librarian. You can check it out at the library. Thanks.
Today I'm going to read a selection from one of Edgar Allan Poe's classics, The Telltale Heart. If you are interested in the macabre, the different, the offbeat, Edgar Allan Poe is known as the father of American horror. He wrote in the 1800s, way before Stephen King, and the selection that I've chosen today is his short story titled The Telltale Heart. It's part of a collection that will be in your library, I'm sure, or go ask your librarian about it. And I'm going to read from the very beginning of the short story. True, nervous, very, very dreadfully nervous I had been and am. But why will you say that I'm mad? The disease had sharpened my senses, not destroyed, not dulled them. Above all was the sense of hearing acute. I heard all things in the heaven and the earth. I heard many things in hell. How then am I mad? Hearken and observe how healthily, how calmly I can tell you the whole story. It is impossible to say how first the idea entered my brain, but once conceived, it haunted me day and night. Object there was none, passion there was none. I loved the old man. He had never wronged me. He had never given me insult. For his gold I had no desire. I think it was his eye. Yes, it was this. He had the eye of a vulture, a pale blue eye with a film over it. And whenever it fell upon me, my blood ran cold. And so, by degrees, very gradually, I made up my mind to rid myself of the eye forever. Now, this is the point. You fancy me mad, but madmen know nothing. But you should have seen me. You should have seen how wisely I proceeded, with what caution, with what foresight, with what dissimulation I went to work. If you want to know the rest, continue reading The Telltale Heart by the great Mr. Edgar Allan Poe.
So, my name is Anna Nunn, and I will be reading Falling Up by Shel Silverstein. The first poem is Falling Up. I tripped on my shoelace, and I fell up. Up to the rooftops, up over the town, up past the treetops, up over the mountains, up where colors blend into the sounds. But it got me so dizzy, when I look around, I got sick to my stomach, and I threw down. The next poem is called Plugging In. Peg plugged in her electric toothbrush. Mitch plugged in his steel guitar. Rick plugged in his CD player. Liz plugged in her VCR. Mom plugged in her electric blanket. Pop plugged in the TV fights. I plugged in my blower dryer. Hey, who turned out all the lights? Complaining Jack. This morning, my old Jack in the Box popped out, and it wouldn't get back in the box. He cried, "Hey, there's a tack in the box, and it's cutting me through and through. There also is a crack in the box, and I never find a snack in the box. And sometimes I hear a quack in the box, 'cause a duck lives in here, too." Complain is all he did. I finally had to close the lid. Sun Hat. Oh, what a sweet child is Hannah Hyde. Oh, how thoughtful, oh, how nice, to buy a hat with a brim so wide, to give shade to all the frogs, and worms, and the mice. Snowball. I made myself a snowball, as perfect as could be. I thought I'd keep it as a pet, and let it sleep with me. I made it some pajamas, and a pillow for its head. Then last night it ran away, but first it wet the bed.
Hi, today I'm going to be reading Running Babbit by Shel Silverstein. Way down in the green woods, where the animals all play, they do things and they say things in a different sort of way. Instead of saying purple hat, they all say herple pat. Instead of saying beat the cat, they just say keep the fat. So if you say let's beat a rook, that's Billy as can see, you're talking Running Babbit talk, just like Mim and he. Running fat of Hamley, matter of fact he had a Souther and 2 bisters, a dummy and a mad. His mama fed him Merritt, Kilt, and Parrot, Kai, and such, and all of them were happy in their cozy honey bunch. Runny got a present, a lovely herple pat. He put it on and passed his L's. What do you think of that? One said, ooh, it's storable. One said, yuck, it hinks. Now Running Babbit never asked what other people pink. Running Babbit mont all gutty, making putty mice. He Wama mashed him with the clothes and hung him out to dry. Toad Turtle said, what are you doing? So high a grove and the bound. Running Babbit signed and grad. Oh, I'm just ragging hound. When Rama Rabbit started teaching Runny how to eat, he fixed his pood up with his ears. He wasn't very neat. The stewed all flipped the drink, all mipped. That's pot noital, said Ma. Never use your ears, my dear. That's why Pod gave you gauze. Said Poppy Sig to Runny Babbit, may I use your broom? Said Runny Babbit, yes, foot burst. Please let me see your soom. Oh, pooply sing, oh, pessy ming, oh, dilchly fertile swing. Whoever thought your room would be as big a best as mine.
Hi, I'm Inaya, and I'm going to be reading The Secret Garden. The house in India was very quiet. When Mary Lennox opened her eyes, she came for her servant, but nobody came. Where is everybody? She thought angrily. She got out of the bed and walked through the quiet rooms. Then she met two men. Who are you? She asked. What do you want? Where are the servants? And where's my father and mother? Then the men looked at Mary's angry face. How old are you? One of them asked. I'm 9, Mary said. Now answer my question. They're all dead, he said sadly. Some months later, Mary was in England. Mrs. Medlock, her uncle's servant, met the little girl, and took her on a train to her uncle's house in Yorkshire. On the train, Mrs. Medlock looked at the little girl. She isn't a pretty child. She's too thin, and she has an angry little face, she thought. She never smiles. Mary sat quietly. She looked out the train window, then she spoke. I'm tired, she said. How far is it to Yorkshire? Not 4 now, said Mrs. Medlock. What, do you want to know about your uncle's house? No, I don't. Yes, said Mary. It's very big. It has more than 100 rooms, and there are gardens. But your uncle, Mr. Cavern, isn't often a miss away. It was different before his wife died. Mary was not interested. Then Mrs. Medlock said, Mrs. Craven was young and pretty. They were very happy. It was a happy place for them. But now, who lives there now? Mary asked. Only the servants, said Mrs. Medlock. And now you. What will you do there? There aren't many children to play with. I don't like children, said Mary proudly. It was late, and the Misselthwaite Manor was dark. Mary's uncle was in the room, but he did not want to meet her that evening. The next morning he went away. When Mary opened her eyes in the morning, she saw a girl in the room. What are you doing? She asked. I work here, the girl answered. My name's Martha. Do you want your breakfast now? Mary got out of bed. Help me to get dressed, she said. Why? Martha asked. You're a big girl. I'm in India, said Mary. The servants help me with everything. But this is Yorkshire, said Martha. I'll help you today, but I can't do it tomorrow. You must learn to do it. My little brothers and sisters learn to dress. Why? Asked Mary. How many brothers and sisters do you have? There are 12 of us, said Martha. It's hard to find food for all those children. Mary ate little food for breakfast, but she wasn't very hungry. What can I do now? Said Martha. Martha thought. Go into the garden, she said. Who'll go with me? Asked Mary. Nobody, said Martha. Well, we all have work to do. But what can I do outside? Asked Mary. My brother Dixon goes out all day. He does lots of things, said Martha. He knows lots of animals. Animals? Asked Mary. Dixon and animals were interesting. In the garden, interesting? It's winter now, said Martha. There aren't many flowers, but the gardens are very big. One of those gardens is closed. Nobody can go in it. Why? Asked Mary. Mr. Craven closed the garden 10 years ago. It was his wife's garden. Then she died, and he closed the garden. He threw the key in the garden away.
I'm Ketsi, and this is the babysitter. Silence. She knew what she had to do. She picked up the phone and pushed O. After 3 rings, a husky woman's voice said, Operator. Please put me through the police. It was all unreal. None of this was happening. What was she going to say? What were they going to say? Do you want the town police or the village police? What? Oh, I don't know. I mean, are you in Harrison or are you in the village? The woman was trying to be helpful, but her calm, steady tone was driving Jenny crazy. Didn't she realize that Jenny was frightened? Why couldn't she sound frightened and upset too? I'm not sure. I'm in the old village, Edgetown Lane, off Millertown. Then you probably want the village police. Probably? Oh, thank you. You can dial them directly. The number is 066-1919. What? Dial them? Can't you? What was the number again? The operator repeated the number, then clicked off. Jenny pushed the number, got it wrong the first time, then pushed it again. Village police, Officer Mertz. Hello, Mertz. Officer. Can I help you? I want to report some calls. You want to make some calls? No, I've been getting these calls. Calm down, Jenny, calm down. You're not going to make any sense at all if you don't lower your voice and speak more clearly, more slowly. Is this a matter for the phone company? No, I'm sorry. I've been getting these calls, threatening calls. Someone is threatening you? Yes, on the phone, whispering. Where are you calling from? Edgetown Lane, 142 Edgetown, off Millertown. Your name? I'm Jenny Jeffers, but I don't live here. It's not my house. I'm the babysitter. Have you heard any strange sounds in the house or outside? Seen any unfamiliar cars? Any sign of anyone outside? Yes. I don't know. No, not tonight. Just the calls. I see. He seemed to be writing everything down. Do you think you could have dialed up a friend of yours? Maybe someone from school, someone pulling a prank? I don't know. I don't think so. Are you going to send someone out to investigate? Investigate what? We can't investigate phone calls. Oh, I guess you're right. Is there someone you could call to stay with you? Someone you trust? Well, no. My mother isn't home tonight. I could call a girlfriend, maybe. It may help you make you feel better. Chances are it's just a phone creep. These guys never go outdoors. They stay in, making charming threats, getting their kicks by frightening people, but seldom show up at the door. That's good. Normally, I'd tell you not to worry, but because of the babysitter attacks, we have to take this seriously. I'm going to give you to a different phone number. This is the number of Lieutenant Ferris from the town police. This type of thing is sort of his department. He gave Jenny Lieutenant Ferris's phone number. She wrote it down quickly on a sheet of paper, and she tore off the rack over the sink. Got it, she said. I should call him. If you get any more threats, or if you hear anything unusual, or see anything unusual, just call that number. Ferris will be there. He's a man who can help you.
Is a monster calls. Doesn't look like your grandma's home yet, Connor's father said, pulling up the rental car in front of her house. She sometimes goes back to the hospital after I go to bed, Connor said. The nurses let her sleep in a chair. His dad nodded. She may not like me, he said, but that doesn't mean she's a bad lady. Connor stared out the window at her house. How long are you here for, he asked. He'd been afraid to ask before now. His father let out a long breath, the kind of breath that bad news was coming. Just a few days, I'm afraid. Connor turned to him. That's all? Americans don't get much holiday. You're not American. But I live there now, he grinned. You're the one who made fun of my accent all night. Why'd you come then? Connor asked. Why bother coming at all? His father waited a moment before answering. I came because your mom asked me to. He looked like he was going to say more, but he didn't. Connor didn't say anything else. I'll come back, though, his father said. You know, when I need to. His voice brightened. And you'll visit us at Christmas. That'll be good fun. In your cramped house where there's no room for me, Connor said. Connor, and then I'll come back here for school. Why did you come? Connor asked again, his voice low. His father didn't answer. A silence opened up in the car that felt like they were sitting on opposite sides of a canyon. Then his father reached out a hand for Connor's shoulder, but Connor ducked it and pulled on the door handle to get out. Connor, wait. Connor waited but didn't turn around. You want me to come in until she gets home? His father asked. Keep you company? I'm fine on my own, Connor said, and got out of the car. The house was quiet when he got inside. Why wouldn't it be? He was alone. He slumped on the expensive settee again, listening to it creak as he fell back onto it. It was such a satisfying sound that he got up and slumped back down into it again. Then he got back up and jumped on it, the wooden legs moaning as they scraped a few inches across the floor, leaving 4 identical scratches on the hardwood. He smiled to himself. That felt good. He jumped off and gave the settee a kick to push it even further. He was barely aware that he was breathing heavily. His head felt hot, almost like he had a fever. He raised a foot to kick it again. Then he looked up and saw the clock. His grandma's precious clock. Hanging over the mantelpiece, the pendulum was swinging back and forth, like it was getting on with its own private life, not caring about Connor at all. He approached it slowly, his fist clenched. It was only a moment before it would bong, bong, bong its way to 9 o'clock. Connor stood there until the second hand glided around and reached the 12. The instant the bongs were about to start, he grabbed the pendulum, holding it at a high point of its swing. He could hear the mechanism of the clock complaining as the first B of the interrupted bong hovered in the air. With his free hand, Connor reached up and pushed the minute and second hands forward from 12. They resisted, but he pushed harder, hearing a loud click as he did, so that didn't sound especially good. The moment a second hand sprung suddenly free from whatever was holding them back, and Connor spun them around, catching up with the hour hand and taking it along too, hearing more complaining, half bongs and painful clicks from deep inside.
Hi, I'm Karen Centeno. I'm from Montwood High School, and I'm reading Where the Sidewalk Ends by Shel Silverstein, and I'm reading The Unicorn. A long time ago, when the earth was green, and there was more kinds of animals than you've ever seen, and they ran around free while the world was being born, and the loveliest of all was the unicorn. There was green alligators and long-necked geese. There was humpy, bumpy camels and chimpanzees. There was cats and rats and elephants, but sure as you're born, the loveliest of all was the unicorn. But the Lord seen some sinning, and it caused him pain. He says, "Stand back, I'm gonna make it rain." He says, "Hey, brother Noah, I'll tell you what to do. Go and build me a floating zoo. And you take 2 alligators and a couple of geese, 2 humpy bumpy camels and 2 chimpanzees. Take 2 cats and rats and elephants too, but sure as you're born, Noah, don't you forget my unicorn." Now Noah was there, and he answered the calling, and he finished up the ark just as the rain started falling. He marched in the animals 2 by 2, and he called out as they went through, "Hey Lord, I got your 2 alligators and your couple of geese, your humpy bumpy camels and your 2 chimpanzees, got your cats and rats and elephant, but Lord, I'm so forlorn, 'cause I just don't see no unicorn." Old Noah looked out through the driving rain, but the unicorns were hiding, playing silly games. They were kicking and splashing in the misty morn. Oh, them silly unicorn. Then the goat started goating, and the snake started snaking, and the elephant started elephanting, and the boat started shaking. The mouse started squeaking, and the lion started roaring, and everyone's aboard but the unicorn. I mean the green alligators and the long-necked geese, the humpy bumpy camels and the chimpanzees. Noah cried, "Close the door, 'cause the rain is pouring, and we just can't wait for the unicorn." Then the ark started moving, and it drifted with the tide, and the unicorns looked up from the rock and cried. And the water come up and sort of floated them away. That's why you've never seen a unicorn to this day. You'll see lots of alligators and a whole mess of geese. You'll see humpy bumpy camels and lots of chimpanzees. You'll see cats and rats and elephants, but sure as you're born, you're never gonna see no unicorn.